Today's show is brought to you by Amrita Health Foods. To get your high protein bars, superfood bars, variety packs, or the new minis, check out amritahealthfoods.com and enter Plant Trainers as the promo code to get 15% off your order. And now on to today's show.
Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 224, Handwriting Analysis in Your Health with Jamie Mason Cohen.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talked to Jamie Mason Cohen about the ins and outs, or crosses and dots, of handwriting analysis. This is a special episode as it's not like any other we've done before. We look at how your handwriting can give you clues into the stressors in your life, and as we know, stress directly affects your health and happiness. Jamie's expertise in the area comes along with some interesting stories of how people have been able to make amazing changes in their lives after Jamie has looked at their handwriting. You don't want to miss this one, and if you can, get yourself a pen and paper. No typing allowed. Part personality x-ray machine and part strengths analysis strategist, Jamie Mason Cohen is a keynote speaker, certified handwriting analyst, and graphotherapist who helps people discover their strengths through handwriting.
Jamie works with organizations to understand their employees' strengths and challenges in order to create lasting change, like Sun Life Financial, the Terry Fox Foundation, Broadway Video Entertainment, Saturday Night Live, and more. He is a regular relationship expert on The Social daytime talk show, and his TEDx talk on spotting leadership traits in handwriting has been viewed over 1 million times. He is a TED Education Huffington Post International Award-winning educator and a #1 Amazon best-selling author of Live from Your Classroom. Everything I learned about teaching, I learned from working at Saturday Night Live. In former lives, he worked for Saturday Night Live executive producer Lorne Michaels, directed TV commercials and sports TV segments. He was a high school English teacher and oversaw leadership development for a large private high school in Ontario. And he's a good friend.
You've heard us say training for life a lot. We put it on our Instagram posts, Adam puts it in his Strava and Facebook post, and it's really gaining traction. Now you could be reminded to be training for life with our brand new hot off the press Training for Life t-shirts. You won't want to take off this smooth unisex Training for Life tee. It's made up of a uniquely soft tri-blend that creates a stylish modern fit. Of course, we also have our Propelled by Plants Performance Tease that's printed on the exact same Ironman finisher microfiber material. It's fast absorbing, quick drying, and most importantly, UPF 30+. Both shirts are perfect for any man or woman looking for active or casual streetwear. With the holidays around the corner, you're going to be looking for that perfect gift for you or for those that you love. So order your shirts now. Press pause, hit the link in the show notes, and get shopping. We have a very limited supply of Training for Life shirts, and you will want to order now to avoid the holiday snail mail slowdown. Did we mention $1 from each shirt will be donated to a responsible, ethical, and compassionate charitable fund? So you can feel really good about your purchase. And each shirt comes with a handwritten card from us. So if you're ordering it for a loved one, once your order goes through, email us at info@planttrainers.com and tell us who to make the card out to. Get propelled by plants and start training for life now.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
Today I'm grateful for my nighttime routine that I've been taking very seriously for the last 4 weeks. I've changed it up and I really do feel that it's had a big impact on my sleep and on my whole next day.
So last week, our volleyball team finished our season, and it didn't end the way I had hoped it ended. I mean, we finished a little too early in the playoffs, hoping we were going to go a little bit further, but it didn't happen. But what did happen was we did come a very long way from the beginning of the season. We developed as a team really nicely. We built a strong connection. And one of my players came up to me after our last game and said, you know, Mr. Chaim, you're the best coach that I ever had, and you've really made a very big impact on me as not only an athlete, but as a person, and I wanted to thank you. And I'm just so grateful for hearing that. You know, you put all this time and energy into something, and you don't expect to hear those kind of things, but it's obviously very nice to hear it. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity that I've had to work with these guys and for the difference that I've made.
Jamie Cohen, welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
We're looking forward to some of the unique tricks that are going to come up in today's podcast. But before we get into that, do you have a moment of gratitude that you'd like to share with us and our listeners?
I'm grateful for every day I get to spend with my wife Karen and our 2 kids, and for doing what I love every day.
I think that's an important message. I think that we all need to make sure that we're doing what we love. And if we're not there yet, find something that we could do every day that we do love, and that will help bring us forward and help us move forward with our mission.
Yeah, and it's I'm pretty impressed with all the things you've been doing so far. It's been really impactful in a lot of ways, and I'm really happy to have you in our plant cave right now. And it's not often that we have our guests come into the cave. It's really fun to have you here. I think it's going to be an awesome podcast today.
Yeah, it's great. I love the artwork in here. It really reflects who you both are and your message, and it's an honor.
So let's start with handwriting analysis. And that's something that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, probably doesn't know exists. Why don't you tell us what that is and basically how it started?
Well, I help people discover their strength through handwriting. I've been described as a personality X-ray machine. And it started when I was 12 years old because my mother was also a handwriting analyst and a teacher. And one day I came home from school after freezing on stage in front of my peers because I had a stuttering issue. I couldn't get through a sentence and I was dejected. But my mother looked at my notebook that day and she said, "Honey, I see a trait in your writing. It looks like a figure 8. There was these figure 8s in the upper zones of my writing. And in handwriting analysis, that represents fluidity of thought, the ability to connect your words or to communicate in a really fluid way. And that planted a seed that I could change and that I could grow, that my personality traits were not static. And that from that moment on, I became fascinated with why people behave the way they do. And this weird, obscure personality assessment tool called handwriting analysis became a means from which I did that. And I found myself in different jobs throughout my life, from working at Saturday Night Live behind the scenes with Lorne Michaels, to working in education for many years, and even being a freelance TV director. And in each of those jobs, the icebreaker as a young introverted professional was I analyzed people's handwriting. So it became the ultimate icebreaker.
So you kind of use that as a little party game and a way to get to know people and for people to get to know you.
Yeah, as a way to instantly connect with people. I call it now, what I do, as speed analysis. So you hear of speed dating or speed roasting. I've heard some comedians use that term. I will look at someone's handwriting and within 30 seconds be able to tell people a few strengths that I see right there on the page that are representative of who they are.
So if you're looking to hire someone like a new agent or, I don't know, even somebody to do housework on your house, would you analyze their handwriting to see if they're trustworthy and see if they're the type of person that you want to be working with?
Yeah, it's not the only measure, but I have done that for companies. So a company was looking to hire an assistant who they wanted to be social, who was good with people, who was comfortable in that role, and also was trustworthy. So I looked at 300 different resumes and I said, these 10 people, based on what the writing shows, would be a good fit for that particular role representing your organization.
So I think this is a very fascinating topic. It's not something that we've discussed or covered on this podcast before. Normally we're talking about nutrition, we're talking about fitness. How is handwriting analysis really going to have an impact on our lives? What can we get out of this? And what are we going to share with our listeners today?
Well, first of all, here's the way it works, which may be a good place to start for context. The way it works is the act of writing starts in your brain. And your brain, the synaptic pathways in your brain, sends a signal down your nervous system to your hand. And your fingers are carrying out the directives of your brain. So you see, writing paints a picture of what you think. And so the micro movements in your hand in the writing I'm about to ask the audience to do along with our hosts, every micro movement is directly connected to a personality trait. And there are over 100 personality traits in handwriting. Did you know that there's 18 different ways you can cross a T-bar? I can tell if you're the kind of person who likes to come into a room and commands attention, or you prefer at the party to come in the side door, eat your chips at the side, check your watch, say to your partner, I can't wait to leave. I can tell if someone is trustworthy, whether someone is more emotionally responsive or feels that they want to retreat back into their own space. So with handwriting analysis, you really can see the spectrum of people's emotions, their thought patterns, the way they communicate, and really their levels of goals, how they're feeling that particular day in their life. Now, how does it benefit this particular audience? And as you know, I've been a listener since the beginning. It helps in one particular way that we can start with, which is something called graphotherapy. Now, graphotherapy is by changing your writing, you can change your life. It's the process designed to reprogram the personality by doing one thing. It could be about raising your T-bar, underlining your name, and it can make a profound difference in your life. So really consciously changing your handwriting will impact you on a subconscious level. It will change your physical memories. And there's a story about a Hollywood voiceover actor who got into a car accident. So this is someone who used their voice professionally. He has several successful audible narrations right now. He got into an accident and he couldn't use his voice to the same level, that same high professional level he did previous to the accident. He went to a handwriting analyst after he tried chiropractors and alternative medicine and traditional medicine, and all of those helped, but he still needed to get to that level, and he was about 80% to that point. The handwriting analyst gave him certain exercises to do in handwriting, and he credits those particular exercises with building those bridges between the way he wanted to express himself and articulate himself before the accident and getting him to that point. So it really can help us become more articulate, lower our anxiety before we make any kind of a presentation, whether it's a speech at a corporate event, whether you're a teacher in front of a new group of students, or whether it's just going out with a new group of people and not knowing what to say and feeling a little bit anxious. So it helps with fluidity of thought. University of Washington did a study in 2015 that showed that by writing more on paper, it increases your memory recall by over 20% than if you just listen or if you take notes on the computer. It also, you asked about gratitude at the beginning. By writing down how you feel about your life, about what you're grateful for, there's something that's different about writing what you're grateful for down than just talking about it. It also helps with goal setting. When you write your goals down, you tend to be more focused on a daily basis towards getting them when you write them in the present. So language acquisition, memory recall, fluidity of thought, and writing just has an ability to make what we want in our lives more tangible and real.
And that's why we've talked about journaling before and the importance of putting pen to paper. And it's interesting that society has really moved away from writing and moved onto the computer, and our kids are now learning how to use computers rather than writing in their notebooks. And I think that's a challenge that society faces right now. Our focus is kind of moving away from handwriting, but clearly there's a lot of important points and reasons behind having the ability to write well.
And if you're looking to improve your quality of life, and we do talk a lot about nutrition and fitness, there's been so many other methods, so many other alternative ways that aren't really alternative for us. It's kind of mainstream for us. But if there's something that you want and there's something that you want to change, then handwriting can help you through that. So our kids' school is a platinum school when it comes to eco. They're an eco platinum school. So they've moved away from textbooks. They've moved away from all different kinds. They don't do a lot of printing anymore. They don't do a lot of photocopying anymore. Everything's online. The kids aren't even expected to write in an agenda. The teacher writes the homework online, and the kids come home and open the computer and see what's there. But they're learning print when they're younger, and then they're not really learning cursive. So is there a difference between these brain waves that are happening if they're just learning print and just learning cursive, and if they're not actually partaking in it on a regular basis at a young age?
Well, because of the education system now that is geared toward, like you said, expressing themselves with technology, I think any type of written work is better than not having written work, right? I think as parents, which we both are, there are things that parents can do right away, regardless of what the system that they're currently in, whether it's private school or public school or whatever their beliefs are with the curriculum. And these are some of the things that parents can do. And I would also say this goes for adults as well. But these are some of the things I've tried out with my kids who are 4 and 5, but it could be done with anyone. Number one is encourage them to draw, doodle, or write. And oftentimes those are interconnected. So my kids like to draw now, and we encourage that in the mornings instead of the iPad as much as possible. So what happens is they'll doodle, they'll take a pre-existing print of a picture or something in a coloring book, and then my son will say, I want to write my name out. So we'll encourage him to write his name, and look at that. And then my daughter sees that as well, and she also does that. So it doesn't have to be, they have to be writing all the time. Any type of drawing where they're manually using it helps with hand-eye coordination. Journaling is important. So my son sees that I journal, that I write in a book. So he asks me what it is. So it's modeling for my kids, not just saying you should be writing more. They see me writing in a journal every day. I do the 5-minute journal, which is something that each page has what I'm grateful for, what do I want to accomplish that day, what I have accomplished that day, and who am I? I am, with a nice quote at the top. So this only takes me a few minutes a day. My son sees that and he says, I want my own journal. So now I gave him one of my little black journals, and he writes in it regularly. And sometimes it could just be doing interesting doodles and lines. And sometimes it would be writing or asking me when he wants to spell a word. He'll say, how do you spell deer? So then he'll spell it out, and I'll say, hey, let's write it down. So then we actually write it down, and that 20-second exercise becomes 10 minutes of thinking about other words and writing them down and seeing how what they're hearing correlates to what they're writing, and if there's any difference with that. It's also gotten them to paint more, because I paint as a hobby at home, abstract paintings. So now my kids are following me into the garage on weekends, and they're painting, but in the painting they're also writing. So I would say any chance you get to get your kids to write, to doodle, or to paint, it's really exercising similar brain neural pathways.
Is there an age that's too young for children to start writing? I know that out of my colleagues, the ones that have the best handwriting are the South Africans. And in South Africa, they don't start learning print till grade 1. Where here in North America, we're putting pens in 2-year-olds' hands and starting to teach them in chicken scratch how to write their names, and handwriting is going downhill. But then in other countries where they start writing later, it's so much better.
Well, I would say that anytime you teach kids handwriting is better than not for some of those reasons. I don't believe it matters how neat the writing is. My writing was also always terrible. Some of the most successful people whose handwriting I analyze are barely legible in their writing. You see, most people will say, oh, my doctor's handwriting is illegible. Probably because they're thinking so fast and they're so analytical. Elon Musk, the legendary entrepreneur, the Steve Jobs of this generation, you can barely read a signature, right? So I would say, as long as you're teaching the act of writing, what I would insist on, or what I would encourage, is if someone's teaching their kids writing, or if they're going to journal, see if you can write out every letter. Because when you write out every letter, what that represents in handwriting is you have time for yourself, you're present, and you're patient. Think about the last time you wrote your signature. One of the things is, if you're writing, this is a generalization, but if you're writing really quickly and you're not writing every word, it's not so much because that's your style. Well, yeah, it is your style, but your style is reflected on a certain impatience that I don't have time to write out the J and the A. Albeit what I did, this is a confession, even though I'm a handwriting analyst, I also analyze my own writing, and I would for years write the J and then A, and then I would just do my last name, Cohen. And then I said to myself, why am I not writing the last 3 letters of my first name? And when I really took an honest look at myself through journaling, I realized that there was a certain impatience. There was an impatience towards my goals. There was maybe sometimes a little bit impatient with certain things around the house. I wanted things done. I wanted them done now. And when I slowed down and I was more present, not on a theoretical level, on a practical level, by writing out J, A, M, I, E, something changed with my physiological balance, and I started becoming more habitually present. So I would say South African system, yes, they have, and India, for example, they have very precise ways to teach writing. But as long as you're getting your kids writing, even in stores that offer online tracing of letters, that is as effective with a parent, if not more, than what they would do at school or not do at school.
So if your stress levels are up to here and you want everything done and you don't have enough time to actually write out your whole name, and you take that and you slow it down, we've talked about on the show many times where your health is basically being controlled by your stress levels sometimes. So maybe there were things going on with your health. So how can we look at our handwriting and see, do we have a health issue, or how can we take the handwriting and change it to maybe deal with some of these bigger health issues we're having, or chronic pain or something like that?
Okay, so what I'd like to ask you to do to answer that question, and this goes for all of the audience, is I'd like to invite you right now to get out a piece of paper and a pen. Now, if you don't have it, you can listen to this, and then as soon as this podcast is over, you can go and find a journal, if you keep a journal, or a notebook, or even a grocery list if you've ever jotted anything down. And we're going to look at a few different traits, and I'll show you on the spot, by just consciously changing your writing, you can change those aspects of your life, at least to become more aware and self-aware of what you're doing.
And please, if you're driving, don't do this in traffic.
Yes.
Just save it for later.
Yes. So here's the sentence I invite everybody, including Adam and Shoshana, to write with us right now. And the sentence is, I told you and your purple people eater friend, take that silly monkey and go back to the darn zoo. I'll repeat that sentence. I told you and your purple people eater friend, take that silly monkey and go back to the darn zoo. Now, Adam asked an interesting question earlier, which is, does it matter if I print or I do cursive? Cursive writing is when you connect the letters. No, when you do cursive writing, you can see more traits in the writing, but printing, if you're comfortable with that, that's a reflection of who you really are. So your signature is what you want the world to see. That's your authority in the world. That's your personal brand. But your writing, your handwriting, is who you truly are. And oftentimes they're connected, but sometimes we put on a face to the world that makes us feel comfortable. And other times, when we're at home and with our family, we have a different side, and often they're connected. Sometimes they're a little bit different. So
should we sign this?
And sign your name,
okay.
Yes, and write your signature. Now, the reason I ask people to write those two lines, now this is just a snapshot, right? So this would be meeting someone, and you're judging their body language after 10 seconds. Now, some of that may give indications of who they are, but it's not a full picture. When I do a professional analysis for people like Howard Stern, the radio DJ and host, and the co-hosts of The Social, I ask for much more than just 2 lines. I look for about 4 or 5 pages. So keep that into consideration when you're doing this. Now, the reason I give you those 2 particular lines to analyze is in those 2 lines are different letters that I can see different traits for the moment. It gives us a lot of different variations. So here's what I'd like to ask you to do right now. Look at your writing and your signature. Does your writing slant up a little bit to the right? Does it stay on the same plane, or does it go downhill?
I wrote on lined paper.
Okay.
But I'm pretty good at staying on the lines, I think.
I think I'm slanting up to the right a bit.
Okay. So if your writing slants up to the right,
you could tell me.
You see here? Yes. Your actual handwriting is definitely slanted up to the right. Not too much so, but definitely, Adam, your second and third line, I would say, has an upward slant. Your signature is on a straight line. So what this means is, if you're writing like Adam, and like Jeff Bezos, the head of Amazon, like Vera Wang, the fashion designer icon, if your writing slants slightly up to the right, you have a trait called optimism. You are the optimist. Now, optimists, like Martin Seligman, the positive psychology pioneer, said, have a calm amidst trying circumstances. You see the opportunity in every crisis. That's who you are. That's how you feel deep down. Now, if your writing is not slightly slanted up to the right, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're not optimistic. There are many different signs. Remember, this is just a snapshot. What it represents is, if it's on a straight line, it's more of a realist. It means seeing the problems and the day-to-day issues on their terms, not overly seeing the light, but seeing it and dealing with it as it is. Now, if your writing slants downward, it could mean a health issue. A health issue being mentally exhausted, enervated, emotionally and physically exhausted. If you see writing that's slanted downward, or writing that's really lightly written and sloped downward, it could mean feeling depressed. Now, how do you deal with this? This goes to graphotherapy, which is what we said before. Now, just a reminder of what graphotherapy is Handwriting is a subconscious act. So it provides a direct route back to the subconscious. And the way graphotherapy works is it builds a new powerful bridge to cross that the old one that's breaking down. That still lingers, but is getting weaker and more decrepit. So by building a different bridge, what it's doing is you're altering the specific neural pathway that's connected to that trait. So in terms of optimism, with Adam, what he's showing is, his writing is, he's optimistic with a tinge of realism. Daniel Goleman said that Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, he coined that term, looked at 70 different industries and said that people who are the most successful in industries have a glass half full outlook on life. But yet, the optimism is tinged with realism. So they're not just, yes, everything is perfect. No, it means that they see the light amongst the darkness, but they always have a glass half full outlook. That's how I would describe Adam's writing. I would describe Shoshana's writing as being in the realist stage, where she's looking at issues and she has a mature, really focused view on how do we solve these practical issues in front of us. Okay? It's really straight. I know you're writing on the line, but I would say overall, you're really staying along the course and you're really practical and you're saying what's relevant, what do I need to move my life and to help my family on the terms that I presently have been given. Okay, so that's actually a good balance in your relationship too, right? There's realism and optimism. And it's not to say you're not optimistic, because we can look at other things that show optimism, but this is one indication. Now, here's what you can do as a graphotherapy tool in order to improve that.
So why choose Amrita bars? Choose Amrita bars because they are free of the top allergens. All Amrita bars contain no peanuts, no dairy, no eggs, no soy, and no gluten. They're raw, plant-based nutrition, and most of all, they are kid-friendly for a healthier, tastier spin on snack time. Their bars are designed to satisfy even the pickiest of eaters. Adam uses these bars to fuel before, during, and after his workouts, and the kids always want a mini bar when we're out for the day or before they go on to their activities. To get your high-protein bars, superfood bars, variety pack, or their new minis, go to amritahealthfoods.com and enter Plant Trainers as the promo code to get 15% off your order.
Raise your line in your writing. So it could simply be with your signature. Instead of writing, especially if you feel a little bit down, you feel like you want a little bit of a hope, you want to shift your mindset, write with a slight upward slant to the right. Slight upward slant to the right, even if you're writing on the line. And that could go in your journal this morning, is if you're writing about what are my 3 biggest goals today, write slightly on an upward slant. And what that's doing is training your mind to come with a different neural pathway present, which is optimism. Now, even if you're skeptical about this whole thing called graphotherapy, which many people are, here's what I say. What do you have to lose? Maybe that's not so inspiring, but in saying it another way is even if it's the placebo effect. The placebo effect is believing something, even if you have no proof that it can work. But most forms of psychology are based on the client or the person believing that this will work. So how long did that take you to write your name? Probably about 3 seconds. So what do you have to possibly lose to thinking every time I write my hand, my stroke up like that, I'm in an optimistic frame of mind. Isn't that how you're supposed to be? Not all the time. We have moods and roller coaster of emotions, but we're supposed to feel good more than we're supposed to feel bad. That's what our life is about, for ourselves, for our families, for our coworkers, for our dreams. So writing of that upward slant will give that optimistic boost. That's trait number 1.
So I think bringing that back to what we talk about on a regular basis and how some people are skeptical about a plant-based diet and whether or not that's actually going to be good for them, if they're going to have more energy, if it's going to help their cholesterol go down. And we say, just try it, right? Try it for a week, try it for 3 weeks, try it for 3 months. And you can always go back to what you were doing before. But if you feel better, if you have more energy, if you have less pain in your life and all these other things start to come into place, well, then look at what you've gained, right?
And what do you have to lose? A few pounds?
A few pounds.
Yeah, we joke about that all the time. But it's true. Optimism, positivity always trumps negativity. We're always looking to find something positive, turn a challenge into an opportunity. And if it's going to take these 3 seconds to write down your name on an upward slant to give you a more positive outlook, to help you achieve your goals a little bit more, change your mindset, why not?
Yeah,
why not do that? It makes total sense. It's such a simple activity.
So I remember seeing you at a live event and you had somebody from the audience come up and write on a big whiteboard and you talked about the strokes of the Tease. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is another trait, and I'm also going to ask the audience as well as Shoshana and Adam to look at their writing too. So the T-bar, you can gain a lot of insights into a person's goals, their ambition, whether they're thinking in the present or whether they're thinking down the road. You can also see the types of risks they take, not jumping out of an airplane risk, but the calculated risk they take on a day-to-day basis. And what I'd like you to do now is look at where your T-bar is. Even if you're printing, is your T-bar strong and high? Is it in the middle, meaning about 50% up the bar? The bar would be the stem, almost like a plant. It's the stem going up. Or is it low? So let me go through that again. Is your bar high and strong, or maybe not so strong, in the middle, or is it low? So
I was just going to say, because I've seen you do that before. So normally when I write, I'm always trying to put it high. But today when I wrote, I tried to just do what came naturally, tried not to be influenced from what I've seen and heard from you before. But what happens also, we should talk about if it's different every time.
Well, that's the thing, is that are all of your goals in your life on a personal level and professional level exactly the same? No. Are they?
No.
I'm saying, okay, I answered the question for you.
Right. No, it's not.
Right. So there are certain things in our life that we're more confident with. There are other areas where we're more practical. And then there's other areas, especially when it deals with ourself, where we underestimate ourselves. And so some of the most successful people I know don't have the type of self-esteem and self-confidence that I would expect from what they've achieved in the outer world. That may be, it's pointing to some things in their life that they're not happy with. And so where you can see your level of goals, and again, this is a snapshot, is if your T-bar is high, it represents somebody who has high goals, good self-esteem, is ambitious, takes calculated risks, and is really determined to get to what they set their mind to. Now, don't panic if you're looking at low T-bars, because, if you're having a bad T day, we all have bad T days. And it will change your handwriting. People say my handwriting never changes. It doesn't change for the most part. Your angle doesn't change unless you've changed emotionally. But with the T-bar, it sometimes does change based on where you are in your life, where you are on that day. And so if your T-bar is in the middle, it represents practical goal setting. So it means that you're not thinking about a year from now or 2 years down the road. You're thinking about, what do I need to do in the next 3 months to get done what I need to do? So having practical goals, especially if you're on a team of people in a family, practical goal setting is a really valuable individual to have within that group of people, because it's someone who is going to make sure that what the family sets or what the organization set is going to get done. You're not a dreamer thinking about all these idealistic, quixotic things that you want to accomplish. You're thinking, what do we need to do right now in the next 3 months to get things done? Now, Shoshana, you have practical T-bars, but you also have high T-bars. Now, let me be clear on something that I wasn't clear on. It doesn't have to be right at the top of the stem. Sometimes too high can be a dreamer who doesn't really achieve what they set out to. They have high goals, but they're always half finished. If you look at Shoshana, she's got a great balance. She's got mid-level T-bars, which are almost right in the middle. And yet you also have high T-bars over here. And high T-bar means 2/3 of the way up. It doesn't have to be right at the top. 2/3 is someone who sets high goals. Over here, you also set practical to high goals. Over here, there's a little bit of indecision because you're doing so many different things that you are being pulled in different directions with a umbrella type shape. But that's still in the middle. You're still getting those things done, even though they're pulling you in different directions. And here is a really firm, it's written strong in comparison to the rest of the letters. And that practical goal is meaning you're going to succeed. And even here, that's a high practical goal setter. So how I would describe Shoshana in a nutshell on the spot is You set practical goals that you achieve. You can be counted on to get them done. You're being pulled in different directions in terms of your interests, but you're still making sure that those are done, even if they are pulling a lot of energy out of you. And yet you have at the somewhere in your brain certain higher goals that you're waiting for the right time to fully dive into, but they're there and they're present. They're just not long-term goals because the T-bar stops very short. When it's long, it means a long-term focus of energy and willpower toward that goal, but you have high goals that you're waiting for the right time. And the timing may not just be right this moment as we're having this podcast discussion to go after.
Does that sound like me or what?
Pretty much. So
That's great.
Before, I don't want to take up too much of your time because I know you have a busy schedule today, but when I look at what I printed for you, I noticed that my print is all capital letters. And I noticed that my T's, the T-bar is actually off the top of the T, kind of off the chart. If I look back at something I did earlier today, which is something that I say often, I wrote down, I'm strong and determined and I can do anything I choose to do and so can you. I see my T's are a little bit different in certain areas. Some are connected, some are not. Does it matter if we're printing in all caps like I did, or if we're like if it's an all capital letter, then wouldn't the T-bar be automatically at the top of the T?
Well, what your T-bar, well, the answer is yes and no. It's easier to look at Shoshana's handwriting because she did cursive and instantly come up with something that is going beyond just the surface. With your writing, you're a complex person, even from your T-bars. And what I'm seeing here is someone who sets extremely high goals for yourself, and you're determined independently. You have this independent drive and focus toward those goals. So for some people, I would say you're setting goals that are so high for yourself. I'm not saying to lower your goals, but I would just say a little more of the practical side would be beneficial to you. Because if your T-bar is above the stem, then that's setting extremely high goals where sometimes your reach is exceeding your grasp is exceeding your reach. You know that expression? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I said that properly. You're really aiming for the moon. Mm-hmm. And so when you aim for the moon, you've got a long way to climb. And so in your case, you are. Knowing you a little bit, to be honest here, I know that you do set extremely high goals for yourself. The difference with you and other people is you actually achieve those goals. So I've never met someone more driven and consistent. Anybody who follows you like I do on Facebook sees that you're getting up every morning and you're running, 10 to 20K on a regular basis, regardless of the weather. Successful people are consistent in what they do every day by building processes toward those goals. So you're building a very strong independent foundation of moving toward those goals. So even though your stem is high on your I and your T above the baseline, in your particular case with your other characteristics, a quick analysis of you is you are really driven by the actual pressure of the writing throughout. You're pressing really hard. This shows someone who's driven, who is emotionally connected to those goals, and you also have that tinge of optimism that you believe you're going to do it. The other thing about you is you have a really big first initial in both your first and last name. This tends to represent someone who is super confident in their abilities and bold. You're a bold action taker in your own way, in your own independent way of believing that you're going to do it. Your I's are the Roman numeral I. This represents another form of trusting yourself, knowing that you can move toward your goals, and that, yes, you have an amazing support team in your wife, Shoshana, as a partner. You, though, believe that you're going to make it, and you've got an amazing level of energy. Your Y stroke, your lower descending stroke, is really strongly written, as well as in the word determined. In this particular case, the pressure and the long descenders show a heightened ability of determination. So back to the T-bar, your T-bar show a dreamer stroke, but in context of the whole writing, even if I didn't know you, I would say the pressure, the long descenders, and really the overall strength of the way you're writing those words shows me that you will and you do achieve the high goals, the dreamer goals that you set for yourself.
Does that sound like me?
It sounds like you, especially in what you wrote.
It's pretty crazy how much you can pull out of somebody's handwriting. It's really impressive how you're doing that, and that it's so accurate. in most cases, right? I mean, I'm sure there are times where it's not as accurate as others for not everybody, but it's pretty impressive that you're doing that. It's pretty cool.
So if somebody's having, let's say, chronic pain or chronic mood disorder or something like that, what kind of steps can they take to come out of that through their handwriting?
Well, that's a longer conversation. I would say that, for example, someone asked me to analyze their writing, which I do from time to time, and I told them that they had an injury. I actually told them very specifically that they had knee problems and that when they sat for long periods of times, their hip probably bothers them on the right side. And they got back to me and they said, like, how do you know this? How can you find this out? I also told them they had acidic issues in their stomach, especially their lower part of their stomach. So that I was right. And so, yeah, that's after doing this for 20 years. I can pinpoint physical ailments. I would always preface to say I'm not a doctor, nor am I a professional psychologist. And so you may want to see a doctor to ask about this if that issue is not prevalent. They may already know about this. In this case, this woman said that she had an old injury in her knee area from exercise, and that the hip, it kind of led to that area where she did have problems moving in certain ways. So I would say that if someone was curious about either something with their mind or emotionally, I mean, as a teacher, one thing that I did was, this is a brief story if you want to hear this, was a mother came in the school I used to work at, and, teachers have to speak with one parent after the next. And this one parent came in after a long line of 2 hours of speaking with parents, and she said to me, "Tell me something I don't know." She didn't even say hi. "Tell me something I don't know. Every teacher is telling me that my son has attention deficit disorder, that he doesn't listen, that he is socially awkward, that he speaks out and says inappropriate things. Tell me something I don't know, Mr. Cohen, and tell me right now." And she crossed her arms, and her son happened to be there. So I said, "Ma'am, do you want to hear something you've never heard before?" "Yes, I do." "And you want to hear it right now?" "Yes, I do." "Now, I only have 45 seconds. So I asked the young man to write out the 2 sentences that I just asked you and the audience to do. So he wrote them out. And I said to the mother, "Do you see the way he crosses his T-bars? He crosses them in the opposite direction. So most people do it from left to right, but he's doing it from right to left. And right at the end, he's putting a little pin drop or an arrow right at the edge. Do you see that?" She goes, "Yes, I do." And I said, "He's not left-handed, because left-handed people sometimes do that naturally. He's right-handed. Do you know what that means in handwriting?" And she says, "No." I said, "This is what he's saying. He's saying, I can't do it. I'm worthless. I'm no good." And I turned to the young man and I said, "You have to stop that. I see how talented you are. You are an encyclopedia when it comes to remembering sports statistics. You are a gifted orator as a speaker. And we're going to work together. We're going to find a club or committee, because that's what I was responsible for at the school. We're going to find a club or committee, and we're going to take that voice from I can't to I can." So the mother unfolded her arms, and she looked at me, and she started crying. And she said, "You always do that," to her son. "You always do that. You always beat yourself up. And I've heard that voice. You need to stop it." So we had a quiet moment together. The mother actually gave me a hug, and so did the son. And I helped this young man find a club that he started. It was a club that was focused on a sport, football. And I came in that room 3 months later as I came back from lunch. And I opened the door. I heard a ruckus there. I opened the door, and now this young man was surrounded by 20 boys in the school, all his age. Remember, his mother said he had no one to spend Saturday night with. And he was the focus of attention. And he looked at me when he saw me came in. He gave me a smile of knowing, and I gave him a smile. And I closed that door. And it started with what the mother said when she ran into me a few months after that. She said, "Mr. Cohen, I have to tell you something. Remember when we did that handwriting analysis thing at the time? That was the catalyst for my son changing. Thank you." And that's the kind of impact that looking at your handwriting can give a person.
That's amazing.
I don't think we can go on anymore. I mean, that's the perfect way to end this. It's an unbelievable story of change, and it's amazing how just simple handwriting can make such a huge impact on somebody's life. Thank you so much for sharing that story and everything you've done with us today. If people that are listening want to contact you and maybe get their handwriting analysis done, I don't know if you're doing that for everybody, or if they want to have you come speak at their event that's going on, where's the best place for them to contact you?
Yeah, well, they can reach me on my website at www.jamiemason.cohen.com.
Cool.
It's
So
great.
we'll link to that in our show notes, and we'll put up some pictures of what we've written today. And again, thank you so much for coming to the Plant Cave, hanging out with us, and sharing your wisdom.
And analyzing our handwriting.
Yeah, that too.
It's been a real pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time, and have a healthy day.